So it's like 6 degrees outside, and we're going for a Jeep ride. It's cold. What is going on, guys? I got my flat arm in. Welcome back to part 2 of the high steer saga with my Jeep. I just got the steering box all rebuilt. This just came in from WFO and I get to drill my own hole wherever I want it. Let's get this puppy together. Okay, so if you don't know what I'm talking about, there was a part 1 to this video called High Steer Nightmare, and we're putting high steer on the YJ and having all kinds of problems. This is the 4th pitman arm that I'm gonna try, and I've marked out some places where I wanna drill the hole. And I think if I do that and trim this off, that it's gonna clear the tie rod, and then I can move on to installing hydro assist after that. So this is my steering box that I just got done rebuilding. I drilled it for hydro assist, and I was gonna do a video on this. I told everybody I was gonna do a video on this, and then I fucked up the threads. But since I screwed them up and I had to salvage it by welding the fittings in, I decided it was best not to, you know, publish a video showing about how good I can screw up. So basically what I have to do now is bolt this back onto this WFO relocation bracket, which moves the steering box forward 1 inch, and we'll throw it back in the Jeep, and then we'll throw this arm on there, and we'll try to see about how well it's gonna clear. I'm gonna show you these 4 pitman arms and kind of how they compare to each other and why I went with the one I did. I touched on this a little bit in the last video, but I didn't have the 4th arm yet, so let's take a look. All right, so here's these arms, and these are the measurements from hole to hole on each one. So you can see these Wagoneer ones are a bit longer. This one is undetermined yet. So this is the stock YJ arm, this is a drop Wagoneer arm, this is a stock Wagoneer arm, and this is from WFO Concepts, and we're gonna pick our spot here. And I wanna show you something else. Touched on this in the last video a little bit, but I didn't have the 4th arm yet. So the sector shaft sits on about a 67-degree angle. So with that angle, the farther up you go closer to a flat arm, it actually, the same length arm moves that way, if that makes sense. If you look at these two, this one's actually longer than this one, but yet it's farther to the left just because it's up higher. So that's the idea behind this. This is roughly where my tie rod sits, and this YJ arm is the only one that has been able to clear it. When you stop that driver's tire up, this obviously comes up. So the idea with this WFO arm, that's 5 3/4, that's 6 inches. So that'll get me more steering than this arm, not as much as these. But ideally, with it being flat and being so far up there, that's roughly where the ends of them will be at those 2 measurements. And if you look, it's, you know, that one, it'll be just a hair past the YJ one, and that one will be a hair shorter than it. We'll just have to bust out the micrometer and see what I think's gonna work. One more quick note, you'll see the stock one has these master keys, so you can only put it on in 4 positions. This one does not have those, so I can literally clock this at any given tooth. So I need to get this exactly where it goes for like center steering wheel, and then mark it so that I get this one the same. So it looks like it shades just a bit to the driver's side, and I've got this centered to the best of my knowledge. I counted how many times I could spin the input shaft, and I split the difference, and the flat spot on the input shaft is facing directly up. So I'm assuming that that's dead center. So this one, I just gotta make sure, whoop, that I get it on the same plane. Works for me. All right, check it out. Those 2 marks are about where I'll chop this off based on those 2 holes, which one I drill. I've got the wheels pretty much straight right now. So yeah, that's when this is the farthest forward. So upon first glance, it looks like it'll definitely clear after I chop that, but you got to keep in mind the bolt head and the joint and everything stick way down here. And I'm not sure if they come out past the end of where my cut line will be or not. So it's gonna be like damn close, but I think it's gonna work. So I think I'm gonna take this off and just cut that one that I marked at 6 inches, chop this off, and see what we get. Hold on here, I'm being so rudely interrupted. Okay, well there's that, and I'm not super worried about how pretty it did or didn't turn out, because I'm ugly too, so it'll match. And that's just gonna be so close. I don't know, what do you think? It's kind of looking like it's gonna clear to me. I mean, this is gonna move forward a little bit when it comes up, but I think we're in the clear. Opens up even farther when we turn. So I guess that's about the closest point right there. And that's what the drag link angle looks like. I can't say that I would really want to try moving that up on top of the pitman arm. That would get pretty steep. So the next thing I got to figure out is if this clamp is gonna survive right there without running into this. It sure as heck isn't gonna survive on the other side, because that's right where that pitman arm is. It would be clamped about right there. So as of right now, I'm planning on mounting this cylinder on top of the diff and connecting right here. Only time I think this has a chance of hitting, like when this tire gets stuffed up, there's a real good chance that could hit. Okay, so now that we got this arm in, I'm getting back to something we started in the first video, and that is these steering stops. And I was grinding away on them, and it's really hard to get all 4 of them perfect. So what I'm gonna do is just chop this off like all the way flush and drill a hole in it, tap it, and put a bolt in it, and then we'll just have an adjustable stop. And in case you're wondering, the meat behind this is longer than my finger, so there's plenty of room to go straight back in with that hole, drill and tap it. But actually, before we do that, I just discovered I need to trim this bolt down because it's running into this WFO Concepts bracket right here, and I can't turn all the way driver because I want the bolt to run up, because when it runs down, it just sticks out too far here. The nut's taller than the head of this bolt, and then the threads stick out, and yeah, so I gotta trim this off. Let's see if it clears. There we go. Bada bing, bada boom. Another small issue I just found, this nut is getting into this joint, and they're a 7/8 hole, but they have the 3/4 misalignment deals that go inside of them, whereas these ones are just a 3/4 hole. They both have a 7/8 shank, but yeah, 7/8 by 3/4 and 7/8 by 7/8. So this one's got a little bit bigger of a head on it. So I just took the old Razor Maker 5000 here and clearanced that nut out. I changed the alignment just a little bit so that the flat spot was facing that way instead of the point of the nut. And then I clearanced away. Just ground some of that side away a little bit. So that's with the stops where they're at now though. So if I chop off more or want more steering angle, I'm probably gonna have to grind away a little more. So one thing that's like really important to me is that the steering box, the knuckles, and eventually the hydrosis ram all hit their limit at the same time. What I don't want is the ram to not have a limit and push against the knuckle stops and wear out the ball joints and stuff like that. Maybe I'm overthinking this. Maybe if I just limit the ram to match the steering box, that then the knuckle ones don't matter, or vice versa. I don't know. I just kind of want them all in the same spot. So before I get too carried away trimming down these knuckle stops, I think the course of action, I'm gonna go ahead and throw this steering shaft back on, even if it's just temporary, to make sure that everything is exactly where it's supposed to be. Now the thing about this, see that flat spot in there? And that is the steering box side, and that matches up. The splines on the steering box have a flat spot on them also that I believe is pointed straight up when it's perfectly centered. And then on this side, it's kind of the same thing. It's kind of a weird shape. So it matches up with the upper steering shaft to go to your wheel. So if I get the wheel straight, get this straight, get the box straight, and get everything where it needs to be, then I'll be able to tell if I've got that pitman arm clocked right or if I'm one tooth off or something, because I just estimated on that. So if you noticed in that little time lapse, I was turning the wheels, and I've got about 1 3/4 turn to the driver's side and about 1 5/8 to the passenger side, but I still haven't finished all the steering stops and stuff yet. What I was really looking for is when the steering wheel is centered, how close the wheels are being straight. And they're close. And I'm not sure if that's just a little bit of toe in that I've got set in it, because that one actually looks like it's pointed that way a little bit. And let's check this other one. Get my ugly face out of the way. It's really hard to tell. That one actually looks towed in a little bit too. So as far as that's concerned, I think our drag link might be the exact right angle it needs to be in. I just need to work on these stops. So let's get to it. So just for fun, since we're not hitting the stops anymore, I decided to try to measure about what my steering angle is. And it's a little bit hard, but I'm using this digital angle finder and I'm coming in somewhere in that range, which is right where I wanted to be. Granted, I basically have to eyeball it. I'm just lining this up at the top of the tire and then trying to eyeball the other side straight with the Jeep. Every time I do it, I get in between 33 and 35. So... and just for reference, when I started, I think I was at 27 or 28 degrees. So that is quite a bit of improvement. So according to like Spicer and other people, the U-joints can have a max angle of 40 degrees. So I didn't really want to get quite that far. I'm actually pretty happy being in that 35 range. That's what I was shooting for. Oh, shoot. So I'm gonna have to trim that nut down because it won't let me run this in far enough. This is all 3/8 24 hardware, which is fine thread. So I just shaved about half the bolt head away on those two and just a little bit on these ones because the gap at the back of the axle seems to be a little bit bigger than the one at the front. So those two are for the rear and these ones are ground a lot thinner. So hopefully that gives me enough room to have a little bit of adjustability. But up here on the front part of the axle, now I'm just grinding away on this because my hole's probably that deep, so it's not hurting anything. But the more of this I grind away, and I'm grinding a little bit away off of this face, which it's pretty thick there. What I'm trying to do is get it to where this isn't touching, so that way I can back it out until it is touching and lock it down. So other than tightening a few things up and random little things, the high steer portion of this is done. And I decided I want to see how this Jeep drives with just the high steer before I throw the hydro assist on there. I want to see if it feels any better, turns any better from how it was before, and then we'll add the RAM and I'll have a baseline. So what I did, I went out to the local hydraulic shop and grabbed these JIC6 caps so that I can pop these on the steering box where the ports are for the hydro assist. That way I can fill it up with fluid and we can go take this thing for a rip. And it's 2 degrees outside and I won't be having a top on, so that should be fun. Pro tip, hook these power steering lines up before you put the box back on. I never thought I was permanently installing this and it kind of turned out that way. So you can get these in here this way, but it's a fight. Pro tip number 2. This bottom lip on the grill, I had to bend it out here pretty good for this pressure line to get hooked up. You can kind of see it cleared around it now. I'm pretty sure once it was all the way tight, it would have cleared, but it wasn't allowing me to set this fitting in there the way it needs to go to get the thread started. So by the way, I have a 1-inch body lift. So if you're gonna do this bracket and you don't have a 1-inch body lift, I'm pretty sure you're gonna have to do some major trimming in there to make this fit. Well, I think it's pretty much ready to fire up and give it a shot. I've got about a quart of fluid in it. I've turned the wheels back and forth like 100 times. I'm gonna just try to start it. If it sounds like it's whining from the power steering pump, I'm gonna shut it off right away and go add more fluid. It wasn't whining, but I just want to see if that sucked the reservoir down. So it's like 6 degrees outside, and we're going for a Jeep ride. And I gotta say, this thing, it feels different, but it feels better. Like it's easier to turn. Before, I could turn the first 15 degrees or so easy, and then it would get really hard to steer. Look at how crooked my wheel is though. I was off a little bit on my alignment. But now I can just, sitting there perfectly parked, I can turn lock to lock without having to strong arm it. And before I had to strong arm it. It's cold. Here. This would be a good spot to get the thumbnail photo too. So it looks like it works. My alignment's way off. I got some bugs to work out, but overall it works. So now we can move on to the next video, which is hydro assist. That's gonna be a wrap for this one. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.